completely cured. Like it went away. And I think, whoa, this is amazing. Today I want to tell you how I cured or healed IBS after 20 years. Now, if you've clicked on this video, you know exactly what IBS is, irritable bowel syndrome. And there's a good chance that you're struggling with this and not very happy with your own situation and looking for answers. I can't promise you miracles, but I can share with you what I did. And for me, it certainly seemed like miracles in my own healing, and that's what I want to talk with you about today. The first thing I'll tell you is the first time I realized that there was light at the end of this tunnel, so to speak, was I was in the car with my friend. He was telling me about this amazing book that was all about a cleanse, and that there were all these health issues that this doctor was able to remedy from this particular diet. And we were talking about this book right here called Clean by Dr. Alejandro Junger. What stood out to me in my mind was that this doctor had his own situation with very difficult health challenges. Two of those issues that caught my attention were IBS and depression. And so that kind of made me want to listen in and learn more, because those were two things that I had been struggling with for years. He is a cardiologist, an MD, so he's trained in Western medicine, but he's also trained in Eastern medicine. And part of that was his journey in looking for answers for his own situation. He had these ongoing health issues. He gained weight, he had IBS, and was suffering from depression and a few other things. He thought, this really shouldn't be. Here I am, a medical professional training to be a medical professional. I'm supposed to be an example of good health, and here I am just as sick as everybody else, and it's not getting better. This had him questioning that approach to medicine and took him on this 8-year journey to find answers. That's what this book is comprised of. This is basically a diet called an elimination diet, or clean. It's also referred to as a cleanse. It's a 3-week cleanse. When we talk about elimination, what this is that we're eliminating from our diet the known offenders, right? The foods that are most commonly considered people having some sort of intolerance to, or large numbers of people or high percentage of people having an intolerance to, allergic response, a very strong reaction, or a mild intolerance, or an intolerance that you're not even aware of. So we're getting all of these things out of our diet for 3 weeks. There's not a lot that you can eat, actually. I have to tell you, it's very strict. It's basically you're drinking water. I don't remember all the exact details, but I would drink a shake that was like a green shake with some handful of blueberries, and I would drink one of those every day. And then later on, I would have another meal that was very scant. The first week was really, really hard. The second week was you start feeling better. And the weird thing is that second week, you really start to eliminate what's in your gut. And when I say that, I mean you really start to poop a lot. And you're kind of wondering, man, I have hardly been eating anything for over a week now, going on 2 weeks now. And how is it possible that so much is coming out? He says in the book that's to be expected, and that is a sign that your body is cleansing itself. You're getting rid of all these things that have been in there for a long time, and you're beginning this healing process. Going through this 3-week thing, what I noticed was my IBS completely cleared up. Speaking of IBS, my story basically was I was 19 years old. I'm 52 now. I'll be 53 in a couple of weeks. So at 19 years old, I'm in the mountains. I'm going mountain biking, having a great time, but I ran out of water, and I still had quite a ways to go to get back to where I was staying. I came across this amazing river, this amazing mountain river. And I drank some water. And it was some of the best water I've ever had. A few weeks later, after that amazing experience, I started having a different kind of experience that was not good. I started having gut issues. And those gut issues began to present themselves as diarrhea. You know, sometimes you get diarrhea, right? You eat something or you get a 24-hour bug or something like that, you have diarrhea. It's not fun, it's uncomfortable, you don't want to do that again, and then it goes away. Unfortunately, this did not go away. It went on day after day after day, and I started to question, what's going on? There's something wrong, I've got something. And then I remembered, oh, you drank out of that stream, you drank out of that river. Oh, that's got to be it. Oh no, I've got some sort of waterborne pathogen like Giardia or some sort of, virus or something like that, an amoeba or something. So I went to the doctor and had the tests, had to, provide a sample and that kind of stuff, which is not fun. And they did all this investigating and couldn't find anything. They ruled that out. And that was both a relief in some ways. I know this sounds weird, but a little bit of a disappointment because at least I would have had an answer. At least I would have known, hey, this is what it is. Here's a treatment. We can get you over this. Well, that wasn't the case. It's like, well, we can't find anything that's causing this, and we'll do some more tests. I had to do a lot of invasive procedures like a colonoscopy, sigmoidoscopy, and of course, more bringing samples to the lab, which it's embarrassing, pooping in a container and taking it to the lab. And no one wants to drive around with a container full of their own poop, right? And here you go, here's my poop. I went through this process, and ultimately we went through all of that, and the doctor sat me down and said, you know what? We can't really find anything that's causing this. And basically, we've come to the conclusion that you have IBS. I said, okay, what is that? These 3 letters I had not heard of before. Irritable bowel syndrome. Okay, that still doesn't tell me what it is. He says, well, another word for it is spastic colon. Spastic colon. What does this mean? He said, well, when you're nervous or when you're stressed, you have diarrhea. I said, oh, okay. But the hard part was that it was happening even when I wasn't stressed or even when I wasn't nervous. They didn't really have much of a treatment for it. They just said you just got to kind of deal with it. And he said, take some Metamucil. And this was really frustrating to me because here I'm thinking that the doctors should know and they don't know. So it's very confusing. And here it is, I've got this condition that I'm just going to have diarrhea for the rest of my life. And that's something I have to deal with. And I'm not talking about, once or twice a day. Like there were days, and very many days, where I would have diarrhea 3, 4, 5, and 6 times per day. This cannot be healthy. Everything's going through me. How could my body be getting all the nutrients that it needs from the food that I'm eating if it's going through me that quickly? Am I constantly in a state of dehydration? That can't be good. I just didn't feel like it was right. It wasn't healthy. And I didn't believe that just living with it was the answer. I didn't know what to do. I thought, well, the doctors are supposed to know. They're supposed to figure this stuff out, right? And if they don't know, what am I going to do now? Well, that brings me back to this book. The fact that Dr. Alejandro Junger, this doctor, had the same thing. He had IBS, not to mention the depression. That was something else I had dealt with. We'll talk about that in another video. But I grabbed this, I went and got it, and I read through it really quickly, and I decided to do the cleanse, the elimination diet. And it worked. My IBS was completely cured. Like it went away. And I think, whoa, this is amazing. And I had been dealing with this for years and years and years and years. That was the first time that really kind of showed me that, hey, you know what? Changing the way you eat can have a dramatic impact on your health. I lost a lot of weight. I was feeling great. And over time, I kind of went back to the way that I was eating before. I didn't really make the connection. I just thought, okay, you do a cleanse, your gut heals itself, and then everything's fine. And I didn't actually do this correctly. I did the cleanse just fine, but what you're supposed to do in an elimination diet is you eliminate all these things, but then you slowly, after that 3 weeks, you slowly start adding them in one at a time, and then taking them out again, and then adding something else in, and then taking note of how you feel and how it affects you, these foods that you aren't eating for 3 weeks, to see what might be the offender. Well, I was just so excited to be feeling better and not having IBS anymore that I just kind of went on and put this book aside and went on my way. Well, over time it returned. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll just do another cleanse. And so that went on for a couple of years, where I would do a cleanse that, following this book here, clean, I would do that once once a year at least, but you typically about once every 6 months. There's also a second book that he came out with that I went through and followed. This is the same concept with a little more research, a little more experience, and he kind of adjusts the diet a little bit and adds in a few more things that you can eat. It's a little bit more forgiving. The version in this book is a lot harder to do. I've done both multiple times, and I actually keep coming back to this one, or kept coming back to this one because I've done something different now. But I've kept coming back to this one because I felt like it was just, for me, it just seemed like the most effective, right? So that was step number one. This book, Clean or Clean Gut. Over time, again, as I mentioned, I kept going back to the way I was eating before, and then the IBS would return. I wasn't really making the connection. I suspected, oh, it's probably something I'm eating. Maybe it's gluten, maybe it's dairy. I don't know. I'll just do another cleanse, right? That brings me to the next step that enabled me to completely get rid of IBS after so many years. It was so awesome. And I didn't even think that it was possible. I wasn't even expecting it. And of course, I'm talking about keto. I started this channel as a focused on a ketogenic diet. I'm a certified keto and intermittent fasting coach, and I just love the keto diet. I do not do it strictly anymore, but the benefits that I receive from doing it are amazing. I have to tell you, the first time I heard about it, I thought it was the dumbest thing that I ever heard in my life. This is another fad diet, and now everybody's eating fat? That doesn't just make any sense. At least at the time, it didn't make sense. And this same friend that told me about this book, he was doing keto and he was saying how great it was and that I should really take a look at it. And I just, oh man, I was concerned for him, thinking, oh yeah, this is not good. The more I thought about it, the more people just started coming out of the woodworks telling me about their great experience with keto. They're losing weight, they're feeling great, all this stuff. And what really got me was, I had been doing some running. I'm into going to the Grand Canyon and trying to do it from rim to rim to rim and do it in less than 24 hours. I had a really bad experience there one year. And after that, someone reached out to me who was an ultra marathon runner, way more experienced than me, and a lot of experience at the Grand Canyon. He reached out to me and he said, hey, you ought to try a low carb approach. I thought, what? Here's this low carb approach, this low carb keto thing again. But I was in a position where I was ready to listen because I had been beaten up so bad in the Grand Canyon. It was kind of scary, actually. My body was shutting down. The rangers had to stop me, keep me overnight, that kind of stuff. And now I was ready to listen. Here was this guy that I respected saying, hey, maybe look into this. So I did. And then I resolved to try it. Well, I had no idea all the benefits that would come from changing my diet. Well, I knew that changing your diet could have benefits. I just didn't know that doing keto was going to have all these amazing benefits. And I thought of it as just, helping me to become fat adapted so my body could use fat on these really long runs. Well, there's so much more to it. And what happened was my IBS cleared up completely. And I stuck with keto for a long time, for 4 years, something like that. It's been about 5 years now, and I have just recently this last year, I've been introducing more carbs. I have kind of been doing more of a low carb than a keto specific approach. That's working for me now. But the point is that I wanted to share with you is, step number one, I did this, and that was the first time I realized that changing my diet could actually address IBS and actually clear it up completely. Whereas the doctors, up until that point, consider it, basically, I'd given up on the doctors, let's put it that way. They hadn't been able to help me before. And I'm not suggesting that that would always be the case and that there isn't a doctor that could help me or you. Just my experience was they hadn't helped me and I had kind of doomed myself, or they had doomed me to you just have to live with it, right? That was the approach. Maybe if I pursued it and kept going and kept knocking on different doctors' doors, maybe someone would have said, let's try this. But instead, short of not doing that, I ended up coming across this book and I latched onto it. It worked. Then after that, switching my diet completely and going to keto, I had no idea that it was going to have the same effect, but it did. So now here I am years later, completely free of IBS. And I'm so happy about that. If you struggle with IBS, I would strongly, and you haven't tried these things, I would strongly encourage you to get this book, Do the Cleanse. It's not easy, but it's absolutely worth it. Or if you want to skip this and go straight to keto, there's tons of information out there. There's a lot of information on this channel, though I don't focus on that as much as I used to. There's a lot of information out there about keto. Try it and see if it can help you. I mean, what do you have to lose other than your IBS?